Hi, welcome back. We're going to do the critique and demo for the depth of field assignment. This is the part one where you turned in one with a shallow depth of field and one with a deep depth of field, in which you were to choose subjects individually that would best be rendered with either that shallow or the deep depth of field. There are lots of you, and consequently there are lots of submissions, and there are twice the total number because of the way the assignment was written. So I may blaze through some of this. If there's not much to say, or if I've covered a technique in a previous one, I may mention it but go on without demoing it, just so I don't keep you up past bedtime watching this. If there are some areas that you wish to go back on, that's the wonder of video. You can check it out again. You can stop it, pause it, do whatever is appropriate. I think, operative word think, I'm going to be able to do this in 4 sections, but we'll find out as we go along. In any case, here's part 1, so let's get going. And the first one up is this deep depth of field shot with a car in the foreground and what I assume is the parking garage in the background. The only problem we really have with this is exposure. And you picked a really, really difficult scene in terms of dynamic range, because in this scene you've got brilliant bright sky that of course is blown out. And we've got the parking garage, which you do have a nearly perfect exposure on. And then we've got the dark car that's in shadow that we can't hardly see. And the assumption would be that the car is the main part of this shot. So the ideal thing would have been to do an exposure blend, but we haven't gotten to that yet. We haven't talked about it. So we have talked about ways to do that in post that might save this a little bit. And let's try it. So first of all, we'll come over here and duplicate this layer. And we'll make this top layer a screen layer. When we've done this before, we've used the multiply layer, which darkens the layer by about a stop. In this case, we're going to use the screen layer, which lightens it by about a stop. So if I click on this, now we can see some detail in the car, except of course the background has now gotten much too light. If the car were the subject, this might be okay. But let's see if we can even this up a little bit. So I'm going to pick a layer mask, and in this case I'll just do the normal layer mask. And what I want to do is look through to that darker background from this top layer. So I'm going to use a black brush, and now all I have to do, I'm going to set this to 100% because I want to go all the way through this. And now all I have to do is come through and bring that back down. Remember, I've got a very soft brush here, so I can blend that edge pretty easily. You can tell from the icon that this whole top now is 100% transparent, looking through to the bottom one. Well, that looks a little bit better, and we can see the car a little better. Remember what we did with the multiply layers. If I duplicate this layer, it duplicates everything, including the layer style. So let me grab this, duplicate it. Now we have a small problem. We're beginning to see a lot of noise in this, and because the car is blue and noise is really overly noticeable on the blue channel, this is a problem. So I'll come here to opacity and I'll drop this back a little bit, just to diminish the noise. So I'm about halfway on this top channel. So here's what we accomplished. Here was the original. Here is with one screen layer, and here's with another, about half a screen layer. And we can start really bringing that car out. Is this the best way to do it? No. The best way is to shoot it properly. But in post, we can make quite a bit of difference here. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Well, this is a nice max depth of field shot of the neighborhood, the background on the hillside. Really very well done. The only thing I would do to this, and that's just add a little bit of drama into that sky. So let's do our luminosity trick. We'll come make a duplicate layer. We'll make this a luminosity layer. We'll come up to Image, Adjustments, Black and White, and we'll drop that cyan a little. Maybe a little of the blue. So with that, we can add to really pretty much any degree we want some drama to that. I'm going to pump in a little more than I need just so I can show you something. So now, if that were too much, all I have to do is go to this layer and drop the opacity of that layer. And I've got some more control. So we've got almost endless control using layers, layer masks, and some of these layer styles. But this is a nice composition with the framing of the leaves and all. Good job. Try another one. Well, we've got some nice little flowers. We definitely have the flowers standing out with the magenta color against the green background. This would make a good color assignment, using color to help emphasize things. We've got nice sharp area in here. Be careful with foreground objects that are out of focus. They can be really distracting. In this case, it's almost, until you really look at the whole thing, hard to tell where this leaf is. Is it in front? Is it in back? We could probably have lost some of this other stuff and it would have helped too. So, could we do that in post? Well, actually, yes, we can. We can come down here, make a duplicate layer. In this case, we're going to work on the bottom layer. So now we're working on and looking at the bottom layer. I'll come here for filters, blur, and I'm just going to use Gaussian blur. Lens blur would be a little better, but it's time consuming. Now, anytime you're using these filters, the lower the resolution of the image, the faster those filters appear to work. This is a low-res JPEG, so I'm not using very much of a radius, and it's already blurring it out. If this were a full-res RAW file, you'd have to go a lot higher to get this effect. But let's live with this. We'll go back up to our original. We'll make a layer mask. And now, if we want to blur that background, let's set our brush to, maybe 30%. I still have the black brush operative. I'm going to make it a little bigger. And the more I go over this, the more I can blur that. So simply by blurring some of that, I can push it further into the background. Now we're beginning to see where the real photograph is. And that photograph is right in this area. So let's help that a little bit. First of all, simply by cropping it. Now we can really concentrate on that. And now we're going to do one more thing. I'm going to flatten this image. Make a duplicate layer, and I'm going to vignette this. So I'm going to tell this to multiply. And in this case, I'm going to use a normal layer mask, since I've already got it set up for that. It really wouldn't matter how you were doing it. And I'm going to make this maybe 50%. And now I'm going to come in and bring out just a little bit of that. Okay, so there's where we started. Now, if you want to go back and forth and see what you've got, look over here in the history palette. Down at the bottom, you've got this icon that looks like a camera. That creates what's called a snapshot. So I click that, I zoom up to the top of the history palette, and I've got my original and a snapshot. So there's the original, there's my snapshot. So you can see we really made this considerably more dramatic by pushing that background a little more out of focus and darkening it a little bit to where we're concentrating on the flowers. Okay? So let's grab another one. Oh, we have another deep depth of field going on here. A nice landscape with the train tracks going off into the hazy distance. I think this is actually level, but again, because of the objects in it, it's maybe a degree off, big deal. How about on the side? We've got this post here. No, we're looking pretty good. I'll leave it. Now, one thing we can do to act a little like a UV filter, what's creating the flatness here, it's that blue violet haze. Ultraviolet, actually, but we don't have ultraviolet as a color. It usually is rendered on film and on digital as a pale blue. So there are several ways around it. One, in the Adobe Camera Raw, is a filter, and I don't know how well this is going to work after the fact, but let's find out. Okay, so here's our Adobe Camera Raw. We have this option down here called dehaze. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Again, this works a whole lot better on a raw file, but let's try. Oh, look at that. Wow. That, frankly, is a lot better than I thought it would be. I'm not sure we need to do any more. Remember that one. And let's bring the vibrance up just a little. Say OK. And there we have a much nicer, less hazy view. Now, I'm going to zoom in because I want you to see something. This is the effect of low resolution artifacting. This area up in here, see the way that's broken down? It's called banding. It's making big jumps from one tone to the other. It's not smooth. This ought to be a smooth gradient. But the compression that we've done has lost that. Now, I had you guys use the highest setting for compression, and it's still 4:1. You compress the compressed shot, and it's now 16:1. This kind of thing is going to come apart fast. One other thing to look at is right in here is lots of sensor dirt. You need to clean your sensor. It's all over the place, but it's hidden in the detail. It's up here in these kind of areas where you really see it. Okay, so there's a little work to do here. But that pretty much got rid of the haze for you. Okay, let's move on. Didn't I see this in another image? Another work coming in? Well, if I did, I'll definitely make some comment about it, since we should only do one image for a single submission and not try to reuse it. But this is fascinating because of the water. This also has a lot of reflection in it, and it's really flat. And this shouldn't be a flat subject. This should be a really dramatic type of shot, because this is cool. Most wavefronts are smooth. This is all choppy and awful. I think surfers would probably hate this, but I'm not sure what at this point we can do with it. More depth of field would have been nice if we'd been able to get this part where the wave is starting to spill. It looks like maybe a offshore or breeze is blowing the spray back. This could be very nice, but it needs some tonal work to make it really work well. I'm not sure. Let me see real quickly if I can help it much by simply pulling shadow detail down. Well, I can make it a little more dramatic, but this is really a shooting issue, not an editing issue. Although we can make it a little better in edit. But it's an interesting concept with all of that. Well, here's definitely a deep depth of field shot, crowding all of these masts and all together. There's not much to say about this. It definitely got the job of the assignment done, but it's awfully busy. It's hard to tell what in here is the real subject. There are several options, none of them particularly flattering. I would also consider shooting from a different angle to where you're getting this jumble of masts and boats, and less of the background in it. Could have really started pushing the idea of this incredible collection of shapes and all. Unfortunately, we've got really three areas of texture. One is this foreground with the people. Two is this near middle ground with the boats. Three is the hillside in the background, and then four is the sky with no texture. This really is a very busy shot. I would maybe try to concentrate more on one of those aspects and use the rest of it to help you sell the story of the primary shot. Now here we go, same photographer with minimal depth of field, where it's focused in on the little dinghy. That's a good version of that. We can really see this. I would probably vignette this down a little. If the little rubber dinghy is our main subject, then let's really make it stand out. And we can do that by subtly darkening the rest of the image so that that stands out. I'm going to try this simply with the burning tool because it's quick and easy. I need to make my brush a bit smaller here. Now, if I've gone too far with this, if I hold down the Alt or Option key, it switches between burning and dodging. So I could dodge some of this back out. I'm holding down the Alt key now. Okay. So now we can make this stand out a little better. Cool idea. You guys definitely have had some great concept stuff. Wow, here we have a modern photographer's version of an N.C. Wyeth painting. I'm thinking of Christina's World, the shot in front of a house in the background with the figure in the foreground among the tall weeds and all. Here it's an interesting metaphorical shot of the figure walking into this urban scene from this very rural scene. It's an interesting idea. It could be made a little more dramatic, but I like where it's going. Now, what might be interesting is that if she, coming out of this area of just grasses and all, were in more of a period outfit, more of a something from from 20, 30, 40, maybe 100 years ago, from those earlier time periods. So that might have made this even more interesting, walking out of the past into the future. And you could play with that. But it certainly is giving you a deep depth of field. You did a good job of that. Well, here we have some toys in a pool or little grotto of some kind. The only thing I would do with this, you certainly have narrow depth of field. You have certainly matched the requirements of the shot. But again, think about, if this is your subject, if these toys are your subjects, then what can we do to make them stand out a little better? And perhaps we can do that. I have the burning tool on. Maybe we can do that by bringing this foreground down a little, the background down a little, and we can concentrate the viewer's attention more on those toys just with a simple bit of burning and dodging. So here was our original. Here we are with the burning on the edges and all. So sometimes just a little bit of tone to help you emphasize what's really important in the shot is going to be very helpful. Well, here's a nice shot of the walkway in, I'm assuming this is Balboa Park. I'm not sure where else they have stuff like this. But we could use a little bit of work to bring out some of the detail here and to get rid of this whole distracting side. First thing I want to do is check and make sure all of the architectural elements are straight. That one is. That one is. How about over here? Yep, those are straight up and down. Could have fooled me. Cool. Well, what can I say? In that case, then, my starting point is going to be bringing this in to get rid of that. And in this case, I think I'm going to make this fairly symmetrical, because you're looking straight down this hallway. I think the symmetrics works. I checked the vertical lines. Let me check the horizontal here. They're off a little bit. Not a lot. Now what I want to do is bring a little more texture out here, a little more detail. I can do that easily by making the whole thing a little bit darker. We'll go into our layer styles. I'll make it a multiply layer. Oh, look at all the stuff in there. Now, I can bring that down just a little bit, and if I use a layer mask, I'm already set up with that black brush. I can get in here and bring that dark part back, and what I can do, because I overlapped and hit that, is by switching this back to a white brush, and I'm just going to hit the X key to do that, and bring the brush size down. Now I can add that back into it. So now we can see the detail a bit better than it was before. Here was our original, and there's our modified one. Okay, so that's it for section 1. We did 10 of these. We've got about another 10, 20, 30 to go. So Unfortunately, the way this process works for me is I need to edit this and then upload it, and then I can come back and do the next section. For you, it'll be pretty seamless. So I'll see you guys back in just a few.